Hey there, friend. Welcome to the Having a Mom Moment podcast. I am your host, Shannon Warner. This podcast is all about taking a few moments for yourself and reconnecting to the amazing woman behind the title of mom. You have so many plates spinning at any given time between your kids, your partner, your job, maintaining a household, etc., etc. But where does taking time just for you play into that? Let's spend some time together, you and me, right now. We're rebranding a mom moment to those sacred moments you take to fill your cup first. Let's connect, tune in, and tap into what makes us the incredible women that we are. We'll nurture ourselves first so we can be our best selves for those we pour into on a daily basis. We'll also bask in the beautiful wisdom of other moms to learn about the ways in which they've tapped into alignment in their own motherhood journeys. Come on, mama, it's your time. We're having a mom moment. Hello, my friends. Welcome to another episode of the Having a Mom Moment podcast. I am your host, Shannon Warner, and I am just so honored that you've taken your precious time to join me here today. I know how busy life is, especially as moms. There's always things going on and always things to do, so it means a lot to me that you are taking a bit of time to join me here. So thank you. Before we jump into the episode, I want to share an upcoming project that I'm super excited about. If you listened to episode 46, you are familiar with my guest and friend, Hannah Koshak, and she is a dietitian, and she had the idea to start a YouTube channel, but she wanted someone to join in on the endeavor, and she reached out to me with the invitation, and it was a full body soul yes immediately. Before she even finished explaining it, I was like, done. I'm so in. And it's like one of those things when you know, you know. So coming very soon to YouTube will be Healthy Table Talk, Dietitian Dishing Up Depth. And that's a bit of a tongue twister. I had to record that 3 times before I got that right. So anyway, Hannah is a dietitian. I am not, but I do like to talk and I love Hannah. So it's going to be just conversations around new perspectives, mindset shifts, and new outlook on how health is associated with worth rather than effort. And if you did listen to her episode a couple weeks ago, you got a taste of that. So it'll be coming very, very soon. I will drop the link in the show notes so you can subscribe to the channel so you'll be notified when the first conversation drops. She and I are both really, really jazzed about this. So come check us out, and I hope you love it. So this week, I don't have a guest for you. We're doing a solo episode, and it has been a minute since I've done a solo episode. And it's partly because I had opened up the floodgates to guests, which has been so fun, and I've been overjoyed and so honored to get to know and share the stories of so many incredible women. But I've also gotten a lot of feedback from those close to me who say that I need to share my story. And if you've been listening over several episodes or all the episodes or however many episodes, if you've been listening, you've probably picked bits and pieces up of my story along the way because they naturally just come out in these conversations and relating to my guest stories. But I think it's probably important for me to stop hiding behind my guests and share a little bit more about who I am and my own motherhood journey and where we're at today. So hi, I'm Shannon. I am a Midwest mama of 2 girls, ages 2 and almost 7. When this episode airs, it'll be the week of my daughter's 7th birthday. And I am a Michigan native who got the hell out of Dodge at the first opportunity I received. I moved to North Carolina to accept a teaching position. I have a background in education. I have 2 degrees in education. None of that shit really matters, but some people care to know who they're talking to. So yeah, I am highly educated. There you go. So I have a bachelor's in elementary education and then a master of arts in educational technology. And I'm still paying for that last degree that I don't really use. So there's that. Anyway, so very quickly ran away to North Carolina. My then boyfriend, now husband, graciously followed me on this crazy dream to get the hell out of the winters and land somewhere warmer. And we lived there for almost 11 years, 10.5 years, yeah, before we decided to come back. But I'm gonna reverse just a little bit because yes, we are in Michigan now, as you may have heard. So anyway, I went for a teaching job and did that for a few years. I know a couple of my former colleagues listen, so hello to you. You all hold a very, very special place in my heart, even though I know it's been a while since we've seen each other. I don't want to equate it to going to war, but I feel like it is parallel and slightly less dramatic than going to war. But I feel like we've got stories and a lot of trauma shared between us. So if that's one of you, I adore you and I hope you're doing so well. And thank you so much for being here. So after teaching for a while and realizing that I have no boundaries and my do-gooder, sure, I'll take on all the things, very quickly led me to burnout. There was nothing in place to prevent teacher burnout. It was an environment where you were often encouraged to do more and more with no pay. So anyway, after about 4.5 years, I exited that situation and fell into a role in an operations capacity in the private sector and worked that job for many years. My husband and I were married for about 3 years before we decided to have children. We weren't really in any rush, and we were very much like, if it happens, it happens. If it doesn't, it doesn't. And we'll just play the cards that we're dealt and we'll just see how things play out. So once we finally decided that we were open to the idea, we got pregnant very quickly, which I know is not the story of so many women. And I understand how fortunate I am that we did not have any fertility problems or any delays. And but I also think it happened on purpose, because I think if I had the chance to think about it, I would have chickened out. So I think God, universe, what have you, was like, okay, you're open to the idea. Bam, here you go. So our first daughter, Emerson, was born in 2017. And in leading up to her arrival and my maternity leave and all the things, I thought, I'll be fine. Like, you know, I was an honor student, Dean's List student. Like, I'm really good at like following a plan, checking the boxes. Where's the gold star? Find the gold star, reach for the gold star. Like, I was always great at that. So I thought, I can be a mom. I'm smart. I will figure it out. I will be fine. How hard can it be? People have babies every day. It's fine. It was not fine. I made my first error in only taking 6 weeks of paid leave. I had the option for 12, 6 of which would have been unpaid. So I only took 6. I was like, well, they're giving me 6. 6 should be enough. I'll be fine. I was not fine. I was very much not fine. And I will shout from the rooftops until the day I die that you need to take as much time as possible, especially knowing what I know now about other countries and their leave and everything else. Like, this is insane. Here in the States, we have laws that protect puppies and their ability to stay with their mothers longer than we actually have nothing in place. There are people returning to work very, very quickly, but I will save that soapbox for another day. So a lot of where I am today has come out of the struggle that I had in adjusting to motherhood, because I was still trying to show up in the exact same way that I had before. I was trying to still be like star student at work. I was still supposed to be the employee, you know, having it all together. I had received a promotion right before I had my daughter. So I definitely felt like I had to show up and show out. And it was a quick path to self-destruction. I don't know. I think I held it together. I may not have held it together, but I think I held it together. But it was really hard for me. Going back to work was very, very hard. Juggling the pieces was very, very hard. Trying to have my needs as a mom, making space for those and allowing those to be respected, was also very hard. I didn't stand up for myself. I feel like I did almost everything wrong. But I managed, you know, to keep my job and keep my kid alive. So by society standards, I was doing okay, but I was really, really struggling. So fast forward, I would say closer to the 1 year mark of my daughter being here, when most people feel like they're kind of like getting their feet beneath them. And we did, in a lot of ways, we felt like that. But I really hit a wall I don't know if it was just the culmination of everything or just the utter lack of honoring my needs throughout the process, but I hit a wall, and I hit a wall pretty hard. And looking back, I can confidently say that it was a case of postpartum depression, which it took me many, many years to even come to terms with. I did not seek help. I did just kind of pull myself slowly out of it. And, there's a lot of things going on in your body in that first year when you're recovering from a pregnancy and everything. And I don't know what exactly caused it or why it manifested, later in that first year. I don't have the answers. But looking back, it is a little concerning how dark things got and how scary things were. There were days where I couldn't get out of bed. There were days when my daughter crying would just bring me to my knees, and it was just too much. I don't really know how we worked through it. I would not recommend the way that I did. I don't think that was the right answer. And I didn't even really tell my husband, and it wasn't because he's not wonderful and one to be trusted. I think I felt a lot of shame and confusion around why it was so hard, and fear of admitting that I was failing in some way. But it's part of the reason why I'm so passionate now about supporting new mothers, because there are no supports in place. And that was really a wake-up call for me of like, wow, this system does not support new mothers at all. There's nothing in place to protect new mothers. The village is not there unless you are actively activating and looking and speaking out and reaching out for support from said village. If you look at other cultures and the way they treat mothers in the first month or months after having a baby, you'll see a stark contrast between what we're doing here and the way they are honoring that transition in other parts of the world. And it's a huge transition with every baby you add. I felt very much failed. And this having a mom moment name was born out of one of those moments. And I remember it was September of that first year. So my daughter would have been about 6 months old. And I don't remember the exact circumstance. I think we had a large yard in North Carolina, and it would take my husband like hours and hours to mow it. And he had finished mowing, and I was like, wait a second, like, okay, I don't remember that he was done. And then there, like, the Notre Dame game was on, so he was happy to like watch Emerson while I went and did something. So I like grabbed a lawn chair and I went and I sat outside and I had poured myself a nice frosty alcoholic beverage, and I took a picture of my pasty ass legs. I'm one who tans really easily, and I was so pasty because I just hadn't gotten outside much that summer after, her first summer here with us. And I thought, oh my God, I'm having a mom moment. And it was more of like oh my God, it's a moment where I realized like, holy shit, this is motherhood. What the hell happened? And that's where the name came from, was having a mom moment. Like, this is it. Like, this is all I get. Like, this is what it is. And this is just my life now, which that's a whole thing too, right? That's a whole kind of coming of age story in motherhood. And I don't believe now that it has to be that way, but unless you know better and you have support and you're really honoring your needs and taking care of yourself, it can absolutely feel that way. I'm proud to say that it has evolved into what it has evolved into today, which is this podcast and the account that I run under the same name, which is much more about thriving and empowered motherhood and making decisions from a really aligned place to help create a life you love to live that is not this Groundhog Day dreadful sameness of every day where you're depleted and you're exhausted and you're honoring everyone else's needs and taking care of everyone else, but you're not taking care of yourself. So it started as that space, and it has evolved beautifully over time throughout my own journey and throughout my own experience. And I'm happy to share what it is now. And I could have never gotten here if I hadn't first gone there. That's just a part of the story. Fast forward to 2020 when everyone's world was rocked. The world shut down the day after my daughter's third birthday, which has been such a weird point in time. When they turn 3, they kind of turn into their own little humans. And that was marked by pandemic. So the way in which she had learned to navigate the world suddenly ceased to exist. And we were all navigating a whole new world and space together. And I just remember that whole time when things were getting scarier and scarier, looking around and going, I need an adultier adult. I'm not adult enough for this. I'm in my early 30s. I should have it together, but how do we navigate this? This is totally new. And it's not something my parents have experienced. What are we doing? How does one navigate a global pandemic while keeping yourself employed and keeping your children safe? So before that, in the fall of 2019, my dad had shared that his cancer had returned. He had a short cancer battle, I guess. I would even call it an experience. It was barely a battle in 2009 where they found cancer on his kidney, but he had his kidney removed and it solved the problem. It was gone. He kept being monitored, every so often over the course of many years, and he was considered in remission, and that was all great. So he had about 10 years until it returned. He did not indicate when he told me what stage it was, which looking back now, red flag. My dad very much always wanted to keep me safe, and that often meant he was concealing information from me to keep me from worrying, although sometimes you just need the details, right? So that was the fall of 2019. Moving to 2020, that was very scary. Our jobs went remote. My husband and I worked for the same company for a long time, which is an interesting story in itself. But when our jobs went remote, we kind of started looking around because our company decided that's it. We're permanently remote now, which is great. Remote work is where it's at. I love it so much. It's such a game changer for working parents with the flexibility that is so needed. And we started kind of looking around at our life, and we loved North Carolina, and we, had a home that we thought we were going to be in for a long time, and we had friends, and we had our community. My mom lived down there. We loved it for a long, long time until we started looking around when we had the shackles of the job location be removed, and we thought, is this really what we want? So after a lot of contemplation, many, many months, we decided, we had toyed with the idea of relocating to somewhere else, but somewhere else in the South, for a while. But we finally landed on moving back to Michigan that fall. And that process all happened very quickly. This was with our company's blessing. So that was fantastic and so helpful. So we moved back home. We moved back in February of 2021. And in May, I was pregnant with our second daughter. And then we were kind of in a transitional period where we were renting from my husband's sister and then looking for a house in the craziest housing market. And we found a home, and we're happy to start getting settled. And so by that fall, our daughter was enrolled in preschool. I am pregnant. Work is going fine. We feel like we're starting the next chapter of our life. And my dad had been on his cancer journey. He was receiving treatment. Things were going well. I had figured out definitively over the course of that time that he had stage 4 cancer. He mentioned it casually in conversation one day on a phone call that I happened to be also in the car. Whoever he was talking to, he's like, yeah, when you have stage 4 cancer. And I was like, oh, that's a fun way to find out. But to his credit, he just continued to live his life and just wanted to make the best of it because he considered it his bonus time. And now knowing what I know now that I did not know then, yeah, obviously so. My dad lived in Michigan the whole time. So that was another big factor in moving back to Michigan, and, got to see him more and wanted our daughter and our second child to be able to have a closer relationship with him. Even though he visited us often, we just wanted to be closer to family. So treatment was going well. Things were going well as far as I knew and as far as he had told me. And then very quickly in December that year, he declined and subsequently passed. We had about 3 weeks less than probably from the time that he got sick with what we just thought was a cold until he had passed. He had been living alone. He had been driving. He'd been functioning. He'd been running his own errands. Like, he was totally functional on his own. And by the time he had ended up in the emergency room, after falling unconscious, by the time we got him to the emergency room, everybody in there was shocked that he had been living alone, and shocked that he had been functioning, because he was just in such bad shape. And I don't know what triggered the downfall there, but he was in the hospital, and less than 2 weeks, I think, later, he was gone. He died the 29th of December that year of 2021. And that has also been a humongous part of my story, because, like, what the hell? We moved back to Michigan to be closer to people, and then he up and dies on me. Like, that was not part of the plan. And just a month prior, not even a month prior to his death, it wasn't even a month prior to him going to the hospital, he shared with me, okay, I'm doing fine. And at some point, my medication and the treatment that I'm getting for my cancer will stop working, and at some point I will die. Well, when he tells me that, I think it means he's got a couple of years, right? And I did have the opportunity to talk to his oncologist the morning before he passed, and she did say, that he was doing well and he was responding to medicines, and that they had other plans in place in case what he was currently responding to stopped working. But that sometimes something just trips the system, and it's kind of a snowball effect, and everything starts to shut down. And that's exactly what happened. And we're still not clear on what tripped the system, and it doesn't really matter. But at 67, my dad died when I was 37 weeks pregnant with my second daughter. Do not recommend. The day he passed, I went to the hospital to see him. And when I was checking in, they asked if I was in labor and going to labor and delivery. That's how pregnant I was and how pregnant I looked. So that was an adventure. And losing him was a profound loss that has shaped pretty much the last 2 years. And it's something I'm still working through. And grief is a bitch. If you've experienced it, you know. But he was 67 years old, and I thought, oh my gosh, if I've only got, 30 years left, like, what the hell am I doing? Like, why am I living a life that I'm not obsessed with? Like, why am I spending hours every day doing work that doesn't light me up, that doesn't bring me joy, in an environment that is not wonderful and amazing and uplifting? And why? What am I even doing? So it really encouraged me to look at our life and start making some adjustments. So 2022, middle of January, less than 2 weeks after I buried my dad, our second daughter was born. And quick side story there, I am very pro choice of the mother when it comes to labor and delivery. If you want to have a natural birth, I love that for you. If you want to have birth in a bathtub with a midwife in your home or in a pool, whatever you want to do. I was always very pro epidural. That's my jam. I had always wanted an epidural. I had an epidural with my first, and that was definitely my preference with number 2. That did not happen. Our daughter was born within the hour that we arrived. We left our house at 5 o'clock, arrived at the hospital around 5:15. She was born at 5:55. But after she was born, and that shit hurts. Don't let anybody lie to you. That shit fucking hurts. But after she was born, and I had a few moments to settle, I thought, oh my God, like, I just had a natural childbirth very quickly. And to say the second one's come quick is no lie. Like, I remember around 1 o'clock that day being like, I think I'm in the early stages of labor. And then by 6 o'clock, she was born. But after that, I thought, oh my God, like, I buried my dad and had a natural childbirth that I did not plan for. I was not prepared. I didn't have any of those handy dandy tools on how to get through labor pains and contractions, sans medication. Epidural was my birth plan. So that was a fun experience. But after doing that, delivering her unmedicated, and then having buried my dad, right before that, I literally looked at my husband and said, I feel like I could punch a shark in the face right now. Like, I feel like I could do anything. Like, if I can survive this, both of these things, like 2 of my biggest nightmares, losing a parent, And my dad, we were so close. So like I knew losing him would be hard. So having a natural childbirth and losing my dad over the course of a few weeks, like, yeah, I can do fucking anything. And I've been trying to tap into that energy ever since. So anyway, this is not meant to be a sad journey, but it is the journey nonetheless. So 2022 was a blur. My maternity leave was kind of a hot mess. I ended up not working much of the end of 2021 because of what had happened. And for those of you who don't know, I am an only child, and that adds another layer to things. And he was not married. So I was making a lot of decisions for him that I did not feel educated enough or informed enough to make. And I was way too in the depths of feelings of despair to even make any of those decisions from like a rational place. So also do not recommend. Early 2022, after my second daughter Everly was born, I had my maternity leave, and I've got 3 months this time because I learned a thing or two to take the extra time, and just spent a lot of that time trying to adapt to what life looked like with a new baby and a second child, and having lost my dad, and also trying to do all the things that go along with handling a death in the family, which is a lot. If you have not experienced it, it's a lot. There's a lot to manage, lots of paperwork, lots of phone calls, lots of emails. It's a lot. Lots of faxes. I faxed more in early 2022 than I've ever faxed in my life, and I don't care to ever fax again. But all this to say, 2022 was about survival mode. Right. And again, this is coming off of 2020 and 2021 when things had slowly started to rebalance and feel slightly more normal. Just survival mode, like just get through the day, you know. By the end of 2022, we had cleaned my dad's house out and sold his house and had most of his stuff under control. And I felt really ready to like step into 2023 and just kind of like get back into things and like take back control of the reins. And I had decided, and it is an important part of the story, and if you've heard any of the episodes prior to this, you've heard me talk about Kathy Heller. You know, a lot of these women that have been guests I've met in her community or as part of her program. So I had taken one of her workshops before, one of her free workshops, and took another one in early 2023. And I was like, oh, you know, like I'm ready for something. I'm ready, you know, to up level in some capacity after everything I've just been through, you know, and I'm done playing small and I'm ready to live a life that I love. And Groundhog Day isn't it. We're not guaranteed the time, you know, so what am I going to do about it? So she was promoting this program. I took the workshop, fell in love with it, and it was an investment, but decided it was a worthwhile one. And with the support of my amazing husband, Ryan, who said, you know, of course, go for it. If you feel like this is the thing, do it. Like if I get a feeling about something, it's pretty strong and it's usually pretty right on. So I enroll in this program and it's really immersive. You've got multiple calls a week and exercises that you're working through, and it's a 12-week long program. And, you know, you're really in it. So I'm doing the work. I'm starting to meditate more. I'm starting to be really mindful. I'm starting to be really aware of my feelings and working through them and just like processing things better and interacting with my world in a more conscious way. And then this is my favorite story to tell, and you may have heard it on the podcast, or if you've heard me on someone else's podcast, I have shared it there as well because it's just so insane to me. I have this journal that I write in. It's like a planner journal thing that I use. And on February 16th, this was last year, 2023, it says, make a promise to yourself for 6 months from today, and then flip ahead to that 6-month mark and write it there too, so you can hold yourself accountable. And I wrote, I will leave my job by my birthday, which is in June. So I was giving myself 4 months to find another opportunity. I, again, wrote it that morning. It was part of my morning practice where I meditate and I journal and all the things. And that's what I wrote. I will leave my job by June of that year. The company had been good to work for in a lot of ways, but also really out of alignment in a lot of ways. My husband no longer worked there at that point. He had accepted a position at another company a few months prior. So just setting the scene for you there. So I write that on the morning of February 16th, 2023. And it was a Thursday, and I had planned to take Friday off to go do something. I can't remember what, but it was a planned day off. And I had messaged my coworker who would cover for me, and I just said, hey, here's what I'm waiting on. I can probably wait till Monday. Don't worry about it. But just in case somebody reaches out, like, here's the status. And I was also writing an email with some other status update to somebody else. And I had messaged my boss and I said, hey, just a reminder that I'm out tomorrow. Everything's taken care of. Just letting you know. Anything that might come up can definitely wait till Monday. There's nothing urgent happening right now. And I see her typing, on the Teams chat, good old Microsoft Teams, and then she stops. And I was like, okay. She doesn't say anything for like an hour plus. And I was like, interesting. I had messaged my coworker, like I had mentioned, about the status, same kind of thing. And I was like, I think it is important to note that this other coworker who was going to cover for me is the wife of the president of the company. So she types and then stops typing and then never sends anything. And then eventually just sends thanks. Eventually my boss answers and says, okay, thanks for letting me know or reminding me. Are you doing anything fun tomorrow? Is a fun day off? And I said, yeah, it is. I'm doing something with my friend or whatever. And she said, good. And that was it. Okay. So I'm getting ready to wrap up my day. Again, I'm going to be gone for one day, people. It's one day, a Friday, and I'll be back Monday. And the nature of work that I was doing, like most things, if anything came up, could wait another day. I'm literally writing an email, wrapping something up for somebody mid-email, and I get a 5 or 5:15 Teams call from my boss, and I'm like, she doesn't usually do that, but okay, maybe it's because I'm going to be out tomorrow and I think she's been in meetings all day, whatever. And I answer it, and then the HR woman pops on the call, which that's never a good sign, right? So all this to say, at 6 a.m. that morning, I had said, I will leave my job by June of 2023. And by 5:15 that same day, I was without a job. I was laid off, and it was completely out of left field. I was completely blindsided. I was assured that I didn't do anything wrong. And, my boss was crying and all the things. And I was just in like shock and like, what do I do? I'm not sure. I had never been laid off before. I'd always left jobs under my own volition. I'm like, I don't want to do anything wrong. I don't want to get in trouble. Like, can I send you an email and like wrap things up? Because I was literally in the middle of an email wrapping things up. And what I didn't realize is when you're getting laid off, they immediately shut off your access. So like as this conversation is ending, where they're telling me a whole bunch of things that I didn't even hear because I was just in shock, they're logging me out of things and they're locking down my access. I couldn't even finish my email. So yeah, all that to say, when you put something out like that in the world, you better be ready for what might happen. So I trust in my journey, and I trust that it was the next best step. And yeah, that's where we're at. Working through Kathy Heller's program at the time was a beautiful container to catch me. The women were so supportive. Some of the women who held my hand during that have been on the podcast. I still talk to a lot of them, and it has been a journey. And I just decided, like, that's it. I'm done playing small. I get one life. What am I going to do with it? And had the small spark of inspiration to start a podcast under the name Having a Mom Moment. So I just went for it, doing it messy, figuring it out as I went. And it has been the most incredible experience. So that's where we're at. That's who I am. That's where I am now. I'm a 37-year-old mom of 2 girls. Midwest mama, wife of 10 and a half years. Yeah, that's who I am. And I am hellbent on this mission of empowering women to embrace the beautiful messiness of motherhood, but in nurturing their own desires and growth and careers and passions on that journey. So I am so grateful that you've been along on this journey, and I so appreciate you. And I appreciate you holding the space and listening to this vulnerable episode. I do prefer conversations with guests, but there is space every once in a while for a little solo one-on-one get real session. So that's me. And I think I've hit all the high points. Y'all, I didn't even come with notes. I was like, let's just see what comes through, and hopefully it's something worthwhile. So thank you for listening. Your listens do not go unnoticed. The kind feedback, the reviews are so appreciated. This podcast gives me such life, and I am proud of what I've accomplished, and I am so happy to share my guests and share the stories and provide opportunities for connection through conversation. And I'm just so grateful to all of my guests, and I'm so grateful to all of you, and I appreciate you. So I'll just wrap this by inviting you to consider, or can you quit playing small in your life? What is the thing that you really want out of your life? If you feel like you're on the hamster wheel, if you feel like you're stuck in Groundhog Day, how can we take a small step today to change the trajectory? And we don't have to make huge shifts. You only have to make a 2-degree shift. If you're like, Shannon, I don't have any idea. I don't know the first thing about this. I don't even know what to do. You know what I'm going to do? I'm going to drop a link in the show notes. Again, I don't have this planned. I'm coming up with this on the fly, but I'm going to do this. I'm going to drop a link in the show notes, and you and I can find a time for a coffee chat. Okay? I love to cheerlead people. So if you have something on your heart that you're like, this is what I want to do, and I don't even know the first thing or the first step to take, or if you're just like, I feel trapped, this is not what I thought it was going to be, I'm not having as much fun as I had hoped, I would love to have that conversation with you too. No obligation whatsoever. I just know that there's so much out here for us, and I know we're often so depleted and so run down that we don't even have the capacity to consider what else is possible. Okay, that's it. That's the episode for this week. I love you all so much. I so appreciate you. And if you're loving what's happening here on the podcast, it would mean the world if you would continue to share it, subscribe or follow if you haven't done so already. And if you really love it, leaving a 5-star review helps so much. Thanks, friends. Thank you so much for joining us on this episode of the Having a Mom Moment podcast. I know how busy you are as a mom, so I appreciate you taking your precious time to join us here today. If you haven't already, please be sure to follow the podcast, and if you love what you're hearing, go ahead and give it a 5-star review so that we can spread the word to other mamas who may appreciate what we're doing over here. Give me a follow on Instagram at Having a Mom Moment, and you can check out the links in my link tree for any upcoming events or offerings that I have. In case someone has told you today, you are amazing, you are loved, and I am so proud of you. I hope you have a beautiful day. We'll see you next time.